In the land of Uz there lived a man whose name was Job. And this man was blameless and upright, one who revered God and turned away from evil. To him were born 7 sons and 3 daughters, and his possessions were a testament to his stature: 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons would go and hold a feast in the house of each on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did continually. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and among them came the adversary. The Lord said to the adversary, "From where have you come?" The adversary answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who reveres God and turns away from evil?" Then the devil answered the Lord, "Does Job revere God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to the devil, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand." So the devil went out from the presence of the Lord, a shadow falling upon the world, a trial set in motion in the heavens that would echo in the suffering of one good man on the earth. The stage was set, the challenge accepted, and the soul of a righteous man was placed upon the scales of affliction. The day of feasting came, as it always did. Job's sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, their laughter echoing under a peaceful sky. In his own estate, Job attended to his affairs, unaware that the gears of a divine trial were turning against him. And a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell upon them, and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." The words were still on his lips, the dust of the messenger's journey still settling in the air, when another arrived, his face a mask of terror. He spoke, his voice ragged with haste. "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." The rhythm of ruin had begun, a drumbeat of loss against the heart of the blameless man. Job had not yet processed the fire from the sky when a third messenger stumbled before him, his eyes wide with the horror he had witnessed. The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. One after another, the pillars of his prosperity were torn down. The work of a lifetime, the blessings of a faithful existence, were undone in mere moments. The air grew thick with the news of disaster, each report a hammer blow, shattering the edifice of his worldly security. Job stood as a great tree in a storm, his branches of wealth stripped away by a wind he could not see, by a force he could not comprehend. Yet he remained standing, his roots of faith still clinging to the bedrock of his soul, even as the earth trembled beneath him. The greatest test, however, was still to come, a final devastating wave poised to crash upon him. While the third messenger was still speaking, his tale of plunder and death hanging in the heavy air, another came, a man whose face was not merely of fear, but of an unspeakable, soul-shattering grief. He could barely form the words. He approached Job, the greatest of all the people of the East, now a man besieged by sorrows. The messenger's voice was a whisper of dread. "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and behold, A great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the four corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you the final blow. Not his wealth, not his servants, but his flesh and blood, the future of his line, the joy of his heart, extinguished in a moment. All 10 of them gone. The silence that followed was heavier than any news. The sky did not weep, the earth did not cry out. Only the heart of a father broke. Then Job arose. He did not scream. He did not rail against the heavens. In a motion of profound and solemn grief, he tore his robe. He took a blade and shaved his head, the sign of ultimate mourning. And he did not stand in defiance, but fell on the ground and worshipped. And from the depths of his stripped and barren soul, he spoke, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." The devil had watched. The angels had held their breath. The trial was enacted. And the narrator of all things recorded the verdict. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. He held to his integrity, a lone point of light in an encroaching absolute darkness. His faith, for now, had held firm against the storm, but the devil was not finished. The trial was only just beginning. Again, the day came when the sons of God presented themselves before the Lord, and the devil came also among them. The celestial court convened, the silent cosmos awaiting the next act. And the Lord said to the devil, "From where have you come?" The reply was the same, a report of restless wandering. And the Lord said again, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who reveres God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason." But the accuser was not so easily defeated. His cynicism ran deep, skin for skin. He declared, his voice a sneer in the holy assembly, "Yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." The challenge was escalated, from possessions to person, from material loss to physical agony. A man might bear the loss of things, the devil argued, but no man can bear the torment of his own body without his spirit breaking. And the Lord said to the devil, "Behold, he is in your hand, only spare his life." With this divine permission, the devil departed from the Lord's presence, a new and more terrible malice in his purpose. He went forth and struck Job with loathsome, painful sores, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. The great man, once clothed in honor, was now wrapped only in agony. He took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself, to find a moment's relief from the unceasing torment. He sat among the ashes, a pariah, a symbol of utter desolation. His wife, her own heart shattered by grief, looked upon him. "Do you still hold fast your integrity?" She cried, her voice broken, "Curse God and die." But Job rebuked her. "You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" In this also, Job did not sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They had made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. The man who sat in the ashes, covered in sores, was a grotesque caricature of the great patriarch they knew. A wave of profound grief washed over them. They lifted up their voices and wept aloud. They tore their robes, casting off their own comfort in a display of shared sorrow. And they scooped up dust from the ground and threw it over their heads toward the heavens, a gesture of shared humiliation and despair. They came and sat with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. The silence was a heavy shroud, filled with unspoken questions and the palpable presence of pain. It was a vigil of friendship, a testament to shared history, but it could not last. The dam of Job's stoicism, which had held against the flood of disaster, was about to break under the weight of this silent, pitying gaze. After 7 days of mute agony, Job opened his mouth. He did not address his friends. He did not address God. He spoke into the void, and he cursed the day of his birth. "Let the day perish on which I was born," he cried, his voice a raw wound. "And the night that said, a man is conceived, let that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor light shine upon it. Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire? For then I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept, then I would have been at rest." The long and terrible debate had begun. Eliphaz the Temanite, the eldest and most esteemed, was the first to break the long silence. He chose his words with care, his tone a mixture of gentle chiding and philosophical authority. "If one attempts a word with you, will you be weary?" He began. "But who can keep from speaking? Behold, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him who is stumbling. But now it has come to you, and you are weary. It touches you, and you are dismayed." He laid the foundation of his argument, a doctrine as old as time: the righteous flourish, and the wicked suffer. "Think now," he urged Job, "who that was innocent ever perished? Or where were the upright cut off? As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish." Without accusation, he had accused. He implied a secret sin, a hidden fault in Job that had brought forth this divine judgment. To bolster his claim, Eliphaz recounted a chilling vision, a secret word brought to him in the dead of night. "A spirit glided past my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence. Then I heard a voice saying, 'Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker?' The message was clear. No human is without fault, and therefore suffering is a just consequence of inherent human imperfection." He concluded with counsel that sounded wise, but felt like salt on a wound. "As for me, I would seek God, and to God would I commit my cause. He does great and unsearchable things. He saves the needy from the sword of their mouth, and the poor from the hand of the mighty. Therefore, do not despise the discipline of the Almighty." He offered a simple equation for a problem that was anything but simple. Job's reply was not one of quiet contemplation, but a fresh outpouring of agony. His friend's words, meant to soothe, had only deepened the wound. "Oh, that my vexation were weighed," Job cried, his voice thick with unshed tears, "and all my calamity laid in the balances. For then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash." He turned on Eliphaz, his grief mingled with a new bitterness. "For the arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirit drinks their poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me." He accused his friends of being as unreliable as a winter brook that dries up in the summer heat, offering the promise of relief, but delivering only dusty disappointment. "He who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty," he declared, his gaze piercing through them. Then he issued a challenge, a desperate plea for clarity in a world that had become an indecipherable nightmare. "Teach me, and I will be silent. Make me understand how I have gone astray." How forceful are upright words! But what does your reproof reprove? He insisted on his innocence, not of some minor human flaw, but of any great transgression that would warrant such a catastrophic punishment. His lament then shifted back toward God, no longer as a blessed giver, but as a relentless watcher, an inescapable hunter. "What is man, that you make so much of him? That you set your heart on him? Visit him every morning and test him every moment? If I sin, what do I do to you, O watcher of mankind? Why have you made me your mark? Why have I become a burden to myself? In his pain, he uttered a profound and desperate wish, not for a simple answer, but for justice and a fair hearing. He longed for a third party, an arbiter who could stand between his mortal frailty and the terrifying omnipotence of God. For he is not a man, as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. There is no umpire between us, who might lay his hand on us both. The circle of friends tightened, their patience wearing thin in the face of Job's refusal to confess. Bildad the Shuhite spoke next, his words sharper and less compassionate than those of Eliphaz. He dismissed Job's cries of anguish as a long-winded defense. "How long will you say these things, and the words of your mouth be a great wind?" he demanded. "Does God pervert justice? Or does the Almighty pervert the right?" Bildad's theology was brutal in its simplicity. He pointed directly to the fate of Job's children. If your children have sinned against him, he has delivered them into the hand of their transgression. He presented a cold and transactional path to restoration. If you will seek God and plead with the Almighty for mercy, if you are pure and upright, surely then he will rouse himself for you and restore your rightful habitation. He appealed not to a personal vision, but to the wisdom of the past, to the sayings of the ancestors. "For we are but of yesterday, and know nothing," he stated, arguing that tradition proved his point. Does papyrus grow where there is no marsh? Can reeds flourish where there is no water? The hope of the godless so perishes. He painted a stark picture of the wicked man as a plant torn from the ground, his place forgetting him. Then came Zophar the Naamathite, the most dogmatic and cruel of the three. He could not contain his outrage at Job's claims of innocence. "Should your babble silence men?" He scoffed. "Oh, that God would speak and open his lips against you. Know then that God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves." Zophar offered no comfort, only condemnation. He accused Job of hidden iniquity and demanded a full repentance for sins Job was certain he had not committed. "If you prepare your heart," Zophar lectured, "and stretch out your hands toward him, if iniquity is in your hand, put it far away, ... then you would be secure, because there is hope." Their words, intended as medicine, were poison, reinforcing Job's isolation. Job listened to their circular arguments, their confident assertions of a justice he could not see. When they finished, a new strength rose in him, born not of hope, but of a fierce and defiant integrity. He turned to them, his voice laced with a bitter irony. "No doubt you are the people," he began, "and wisdom will die with you. But I have understanding as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Who does not know such things as these?" He refused to be patronized by their simple maxims. He was a laughingstock to his friends, a man who called on God and was answered with devastation. He acknowledged God's absolute power, the very power they used as a weapon against him. "I know it is so of a truth, but how should man be just with God, the wise in heart and mighty in strength, who has hardened himself against him and has prospered?" Yet in the midst of this wrestling, this battle against the silence of heaven and the accusations of earth, a profound and unshakable conviction began to form. His gaze looked beyond his friends, beyond his suffering, beyond even the grave. The words came forth, a stunning declaration of faith from the heart of the ash heap. It was a cry that echoed through the ages, a testament to a hope that transcends understanding. "For I know that my Redeemer lives," he proclaimed, his voice ringing with a sudden, unearthly certainty. "And at the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me." In that moment, Job was not a victim. He was a prophet of his own vindication, asserting a truth deeper than his pain, a relationship with God that his friends, in all their wisdom, could never comprehend. He did not have the answer, but he knew the one who did. After the three friends fell silent, confounded by Job's persistence and unable to refute his claims, a new voice emerged from the gathering. It belonged to Elihu, son of Barashul the Buzite. He was a younger man who had listened to the entire exchange, his anger growing with each speech. His youthful face was flushed with indignation. He was angry at Job, because Job justified himself rather than God. And he was angry at the three friends, because they had found no answer, and yet had condemned Job. Because they were older, Elihu had waited to speak, but their silence was his cue. "I am young in years, and you are aged," he began, his voice earnest and full of passion. "Therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you. I said, 'Let days speak, and many years teach wisdom.' But it is the Spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand." Elihu dismissed the arguments of both sides. He claimed a higher wisdom, a direct inspiration from God. He proposed a different purpose for suffering. Where the friends saw only punishment for past sins, Elihu saw a tool for divine communication and correction. God speaks in one way and in two, though man does not perceive it, he explained. In a dream, in a vision of the night, he opens the ears of men and terrifies them with warnings, that he may turn man aside from his deed and conceal pride from a man. He argued that pain and sickness were not merely a sentence, but a sermon. God afflicts the body to save the soul, to bring a person to the brink, so they might be redeemed by a mediator, a messenger from heaven. Then he is gracious to him and says, "Deliver him from going down into the pit." I have found a ransom. His flesh becomes fresh with youth. He returns to the days of his youthful vigor. Elihu's speech was a tempest of words, a bridge between the flawed reasoning of men and the divine revelation that was about to unfold. He prepared the way, shifting the focus from blame to the mysterious redemptive purposes of God. As Elihu's final words faded, the air itself began to change. The sky darkened, not with the gloom of evening, but with the ominous swirl of an approaching storm. A wind began to rise, not the devastating gale that had killed Job's children, but a powerful supernatural vortex that seemed to center directly on the small group of men. Out of the heart of this whirlwind, a voice spoke. It was not the whisper of a spirit that Eliphaz had heard, nor the passionate reasoning of Elihu. It was a voice that held the power of crashing waves and the authority of silent mountains. It was the voice of the Lord, and he did not address the friends. He did not address Elihu. He spoke directly to Job. "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" The voice thundered, a rebuke that was also an invitation. "Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me." God did not answer Job's questions about justice. He did not explain the wager with the devil. Instead, he challenged the very foundation of Job's right to question. He unleashed a torrent of rhetorical questions, each one designed to reveal the immense, unbridgeable chasm between divine wisdom and human understanding. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it?" He paraded the glories of his creation before Job's mind. "Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place? Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the cords of Orion? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that a flood of waters may cover you?" He described the wild lion, the free-roaming donkey, the magnificent war horse, and finally, the great and terrifying creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan, symbols of a power so vast and untamable that they made human concerns seem infinitesimal. It was not an explanation. It was an experience, a direct confrontation with the sheer majesty of the Creator. Humbled and overwhelmed by the divine spectacle, by the voice from the whirlwind, Job was left with nothing. His arguments, his cries for justice, his defense of his own integrity, they all dissolved into dust before the awesome reality of God. He had demanded a trial, a day in court, and he had received it. And in that court, he could only confess his own ignorance. The Lord paused his questioning. Shall a fault-finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God, let him answer it. And Job answered the Lord, his voice no longer defiant, but a whisper of submission. Behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer. Twice, but I will proceed no further. Yet God spoke again, pressing the lesson home. After a second final display of his cosmic power, Job's repentance was complete and absolute. I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted, he confessed. I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes. The trial was over, and the Lord turned his attention to the three friends. My wrath is kindled against you, he said to Eliphaz, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. They were commanded to offer a sacrifice, and only the prayer of Job on their behalf would save them. The Lord then turned his blessing back upon Job. He restored his fortunes twofold. He was given again 7 sons and 3 daughters. And in all the land there were no women so beautiful as Job's daughters. Job lived another 140 years, and saw his children and his children's children to 4 generations. And Job died, an old man, full of days, his life a testament not to the simplicity of reward and punishment, but to the profound mystery of faith that endures and is vindicated even through the fire. The story of Job shows that we may never understand the reasons for our suffering, but we can trust the character of the one who walks with us through it. True faith is not the absence of questions, but the courage to hold on to God even when there are no answers. The story you have just heard is more than an ancient tale of suffering and restoration. It is a mirror reflecting the deepest questions of our own hearts. In our lives, we too face whirlwind storms of loss, confusion, and pain that we cannot comprehend. We ask, why? We search for reasons, for a justice that makes sense. Job's journey teaches us a profound truth. Some questions are not meant to be answered, but to be outgrown. His ultimate peace came not from an explanation, but from a revelation, a direct encounter with the majesty and mystery of God. He learned that his understanding was finite, but God's presence was infinite. He discovered that faith is not a transaction, where good behavior earns a good life. It is a relationship, one that holds fast through blessing and through trial, in the light and in the darkness. This epic account is one of hundreds preserved in the Scriptures, each one a powerful lesson in faith, history, and human nature. Do you wish to explore more of these timeless narratives? To witness the parting of the Red Sea, to stand with David against Goliath, to hear the wisdom of Solomon? Our new animated series, Chronicles of Faith, brings these stories to life like never before. Each episode is meticulously crafted to be faithful to the source, presented with the dramatic weight and epic scope these stories deserve. Journey with us through the annals of history and faith. Understand the foundations of the world as you know it. Click the link in the description to start your free trial and begin your own journey into the heart of these powerful, life-changing stories. Don't just hear the tale. Witness the chronicle.